All right. Our next speaker today is Stephen Forte. We are in YPO Gold together. We're in the same chapter. And I met him this year, and we've become good friends. He is a high-tech entrepreneur who invented much of the technology for the BlackBerry, and continues to innovate in the mobile space. His expertise and passion in high tech includes voice and wireless, textile tech, industrial tech, Internet of Things, IoT, artificial intelligence, AI, and mobile apps. An expert in mobile tech with 28 patents filed, 14 awarded, and has raised millions and millions of dollars in debt for capital for 3 different companies. He's going to talk to you today about some of his latest innovation. Let's give a big leap welcome to Stephen Forte.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing, man? Good to see you. Thank you. Well, it's nice to be here. And what I thought I'd shine on a little bit today is you've heard a lot from the other sessions on what to do, how to be, how to behave, tips and tricks for looking for jobs or starting businesses. So I thought I'd lead in a little and talk about what the environment's going to look like you're stepping into. What is this world doing now, particularly in tech and innovation? Because one of the things I'd like to highlight is that in the early days, in my early days, there were tech jobs and there were other jobs. And my argument is everything today is a tech job, whether you're a surgeon or a physician in robotic surgery or you're in social media. So a little bit about me. I'm a local guy from the Valley, went to public school, did my undergrad at USC, spent some time in the Marine Corps. So I don't come from any special breeding or background that made things come easy, and I'm sure many of you don't as well. And I'll move through fairly quickly. My new company I've started is called Collar Tech. I'm creating a new way for people to communicate during active sports. Skiing, cycling, snowboarding, you'll be able to speak hands-free to all your buddies. So you'll probably see that coming out in another 6 to 9 months. So technology is changing. It is changing the world. And by the way, this is a similar presentation that I give to CEOs around the world. So I'm not dumbing anything down for you guys because you don't need it. But it really is different now than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Things are moving at a much quicker pace. Part of the challenge is our brains have had no real significant upgrade in the last 1,000 years. However, technology is doubling every 18 to 24 months. And that matters because it starts to change things. So what I hope to open your brain up slightly today is to at least have an understanding of what's happening in the world so you can check in with technology and see how it may affect what you're doing. So we all have expectations about the future. Most of our expectations are somewhat linear. You're in 11th grade, you go to 12th grade. You're a junior, you become a senior. You're paid $30,000 a year, maybe next year it's $33,000. The challenge with technology is it doesn't really work that way. It changes things dramatically. So these are things that will need to be in your radar because then it can surprise you. I could give you lists of companies who thought they owned their markets just to collapse later, from Polaroid to Digital Equipment Corporation, others that you may not even know in the last few years. So this surprise factor creates an opportunity for you as entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs within a company. So the big question is why, and why is this happening now? Why is, again, now different? And part of that is because this exponential growth in technology is allowing us to make better and better tools that allow us to make technology faster and faster. And again, it affects everybody in the room. So if you look again at linear compared to exponential, you'll notice there's one little spot there called the knee of the curve. How many of you have heard of 3D printing? Okay. Any of you hear about it 5 years ago, 8 years ago? Maybe you weren't paying attention. Okay. It's been around about 30 years. Amazing, 30 years. However, now it's just hitting the knee of this curve. Then you start to see interesting things happening, like this self-making bridge. So things that can happen you haven't considered, and if you recall that earlier part of the slide that showed They call this the deceptive part of the technology curve, where you don't think it's going to be truly transformative, but it becomes so in just a little bit of time. So you've all heard of Moore's Law? For those of you who didn't know, this is the guy. He was the founder of Intel, who discovered when he founded his company that technology tended to double every couple of years. So a couple of examples for you. This was a resistor. This was the first integrated circuit in 1958. 1971, it went from 2 transistors to 23,000 transistors. Today, we're at 18 billion transistors. The amount of computing power that is in this. So what's that mean? That means in the future, a lot of the software programming jobs may go away because computers will actually program software. So it's a lot of very interesting compounding aspects. This was GPS when I was younger. This is GPS today. 1956, this was a hard drive. If you had your own airplane or railway car, this is what you could do with 5 megabytes. As you know, earlier on, 2005, it's on the tip of your finger. 2014, it's gone from 128 megabyte to 128 gigabyte. Massive multiplier effect in tech. So when I was a kid, all these gadgets are what you needed in your closet in order to do everything the smartphone does today. It's pretty funny, isn't it? When you think of having the radio, your camera, the CD player, a video recorder, a camera. You had all of those accessories. Today you didn't. So can this kind of trend go on forever? Do you need to be worried about it? Do you need to consider it with your career, with your path? Is this just one curve that's going to fade out over time? Well, I would argue it's not, because it's really a series of nested curves. So the first technology curve in this case was the relay that was invented. Then we went to the vacuum tube. Transistors got real popular. Everybody got transistor radios. Then it phased out simply because we created integrated circuits. What you will see now is quantum. Quantum computing is pretty amazing. What can be done in about the size of my thumbnail can crack encryption that today would take about maybe 1 million years of today's processing power. It could do in about a minute. So that, again, changes industries. It makes opportunity for you as you go on. So again, the purpose is to open your eyes to what's happening in the world with tech, because it will impact you. And if you don't keep your eye on it, it might just steamroll you. You think maybe because you're young, you're immune from that. It's the old guys like me who get surprised by things when you can order Starbucks on your app. But it's not. It may catch up to you. So a couple of things I'll mention. Things that young entrepreneurs, and I focus a bit on entrepreneurs, to keep in mind. So one, understand what I call the exponentials. So you need to account for yourselves, no matter what you want to be, whether it's social media star, an engineer, or a CEO, how technology may impact you, and that it may surprise you along the way. 2 is seeing the world as abundant as opposed to scarce. The old business models in the past were about scarcity. There's only so much oil. There's only so many smart people, right? But that's really not the case. You'll see that closed businesses fail. So a couple of examples you may think about. MIT just discovered a technology where they can bombard salt water with electricity microns and desalinize water. So the ability now to create fresh water looks on the horizon that you could have one of these sitting anywhere at the ocean shore and create fresh water. You can now manufacture a perfect diamond. Oil. When I was a kid, they said we'd be out of oil by the 1990s. Now we have more than we can possibly imagine, because we've gotten better at finding it, we've gotten better at pumping it, we've gotten better at using it, and we found alternatives. So again, scarcity doesn't continue. Also, leverage these exponential technologies, as I list here. So when you're thinking about being the social media star, the physician, the entrepreneur, you want to open coffee shop, whatever your dream is, make sure you incorporate some of these components, because this is the direction of where things are going. And you can leverage those before others. I'm now about 6 months late on my product bringing out of where I'd like it, and the reason I've delayed it is there are some new chipsets and new intelligent microphones that are just being released. So if I can go to market as a little guy with a new technology, well, it's a lot easier to compete with a Samsung or an Apple or someone else. because they haven't had the time to productize all of those new components. So there's sometimes a late-comer advantage, especially in technology. Massively transformative purpose. The interesting thing you'll discover over time, and it's quite commonly talked about in the venture community, it costs as much to invest $1 million into a project for a VC fund as it does for 50 million. You need the same paperwork, the same due diligence, the same amount of meetings. Frankly, sometimes it costs more because the $1 million might be a less sophisticated company. So if you're going to invest your time, and it is the most valuable resource you have, I know it feels like you have a ton of it now at your age, it goes fast. You want to spend your time on things that can be rewarding. Come up with that big idea and do it little steps at a time, like Google says. Think big, but start small. Tap the crowd. Many of you have started to do this, whether it's social networking or others. But when you ask questions, as I heard some before, well, how do you get into a space? How do you learn about it? The amount of crowd sources today to give you access to capital, smart people, bulletin boards, gurus, anything you can find. Email people, text people on LinkedIn, ask questions. They will respond. So you'll be able to collect that information, and that's an environment that didn't exist for most of us over 40. Because when we were young, you couldn't get that information, and it was far more fundamental. So when you do launch and you decide to get into something, it's not just innovating and inventing technology. It might be your persona on YouTube. It might be a coffee shop you've started. You might be going into medical school, however that may be. Question things as you go. Be prepared to disrupt them. Be prepared to challenge. And you'll never get it perfect before you launch. I guarantee you when I launch my product, it's going to be uglier than I'd like. I'll probably have some software bugs I'd rather not have. But if you wait till you create that perfect beast, you may miss your market. And many times, you'll get feedback from the market that's far different than you might expect. I might think the 5 features I think are top in my product are just the best thing I've ever heard of. But my customers may not think so. They may find something else is more compelling. So I don't want to spend all my time and money developing features that I haven't proven with a mass audience yet. So a couple of things I thought I'd leave you with, things I'd kind of learned along the way. So you are now competing in a global talent pool. You need to be focused. So I've hired several engineers in the last couple of months. I look everywhere around the world. I have a team in Chicago. I have individual engineers in Bangalore. I have guys in Hong Kong, Israel. I think that's about it right now. Well, San Francisco, of course, and then in LA. Why? Because I look exclusively for experts in the field. If I'm developing firmware for a particular chipset, I'm not just going to find the guy with the resume this long who lists every single acronym of every kind of chip and real-time operating system that exists. I'm going to find someone who's really worked on the kind of chip I'm working on and has actually built something. And you know what? Today I can. And even if he's in India. See, when I grew up, everyone could kind of get a job, right? Even the mediocre guys, someone needed that mediocre guy in the zip code. It's really not the case anymore. So when people are looking for talent of any kind, marketing assistance, human resource, legal help of any kind, they can look anywhere in the world and manage them digitally as I do with Slack, online project management tools, email, anything else, video conference on Skype. I don't need to sit next to someone. I don't want to sit next to someone. It took me an hour and a half to get here from Calabasas today, right? I'd rather do it online. It's more efficient. Always bring an idea or a deal to the table. Whenever you walk in somewhere, whether it's for a job interview or working with a startup, bring something to the party. Show that you've thought about it. It really inspires people to show that you're interested in your telling, right? Whenever you meet someone new and you have a great discussion, always ask to be introduced to someone else. It's a great way of continuing to connect with people that you meet. So if you get a chance that meeting with a mentor, you bump into someone for a 2-minute elevator conversation at a conference, say, hey, that's great, thank you for the time. Is there anyone you think I should speak to who's an expert at such? I mentioned every job is high tech, and it really is. You have to be very savvy in today's tools, as you probably already know. Create value for others and the reward will come. If you bring value to someone, the amount of resumes I see, especially from people your age, who give me a chronology of their life. Honestly, I could care less. I don't care where you worked. I don't care how long you were there. I don't care. I really don't care. I want to see how you contributed. Why did that employer pay you, and how are you able to produce a value that's greater than the money they paid you? That's what it's about, right? If I pay you $100,000 a year, if you're not generating $500,000 a year for my company, you're a waste of money. One way or the other, and it might be in engineering, it might be in help, it might be in HR, finding talent, it might be any component. Keep your nut low. And this is a lifelong experience. The only reason, the reason I'm able to do what I'm doing now, which is starting a new company, I haven't had a paycheck in 2 years. Right? But that's okay. I've had big jobs, I've had little jobs, I've sold companies. But by keeping your expenses managed individually, it gives you options. You can take that killer opportunity to work for the hot startup for free for 6 months if you're not having to pay off a truck, right? And a new cell phone and whatever else you had. You'll have enough expenses with school, like the rest of us. When asking someone for help, be laser specific. I'm looking for an engineering job. Well, great, good luck to you, right? I'm looking for an engineering job, programming with Cirrus Logic chips, doing firmware predominantly for low energy mobile devices. Wow, now I can think about people who might need that individual, right? It's a very different conversation. So rather than sympathy, now I can maybe give you help. So stay specific with your ask. When you get that key moment with that person at the conference, the mentor, wherever, have a very specific ask. And it's far easier for them to help you, or frankly not help you, and then you won't waste your time if they can't. Do something so people can see how you think. Right? Large group of you out here, if you're interesting folks, you have a little bit of a background, maybe your resume says something interesting. I want to know a little bit more, even before I meet you, how do you think? And I don't mean political opinion, and much like was stated earlier, you might want to keep that off your blogs. It's really more about how do you assess these challenges in life? What is your opinion on a technology, on a particular field that you might be in, new medical capability, whatever it might be? You need to have an intelligent opinion. This is a funny one because I've never seen a successful low-energy person. Have you ever seen the guy who's just low energy, sloughs along, just doesn't have a great deal of vigor when they walk in the room, doesn't inspire anybody? I can't remember ever meeting one of those that I'm like, oh my God, the guy's a billionaire. Yeah, he was great. It just doesn't happen. You abandon some of this when you're young because you think health, vitality will maintain forever. It doesn't. So it's, I'd heard it said a while back where they say, imagine you were given a car today and you'd say, great, I'll take the car, it's for free. I love that. And they say, but it's the only car you'll have for life. Only car you'll ever have. You'll take care of that car very differently than you're on a 2-year lease with Toyota, right? Well, your body's your car, and it's there for life. And like it or not, it goes faster than you think. I just hit my 50th birthday a month ago. It goes faster than you think. So take care of yourself, and as they mentioned earlier, it does matter how you present yourself. It does matter how you walk, how you talk. Be the best you can in your own frame physically, because if someone can't manage that side of their life, right? If I have a CFO coming into my business, and he says, I'm going to manage your finances, but I find out that, the rest of his life's a shambles, and he's maybe filed bankruptcy, and, he's a terrible overeater, or whatever it may be, you're like, well, if he can't manage his own finances, is he going to manage mine well? If he can't manage his own fitness to a relative degree in his own body, do I want him representing my company and being responsible for my technology? These are things you think about as employers. Don't take yourself too seriously. Be able to laugh at yourself. You'll hear the bio, oh yeah, I had this great company in Silicon Valley, I sold it for a ton of money, all this great stuff, but you know what, I've had a lot of failures. I've had a lot of business ideas that didn't start. I've had stuff I wasted time on. I was developing hotels in China when I first moved out to China. I did live in Asia for a decade. as you saw there on the slide. So, and stumbling into things. And, you know, part of the experience was, well, how do you do that? Well, you don't. You just do. So err on the side of action, I would say. And ultimately, just enjoy it. It really isn't a race to the end. I felt sometimes that I raced through my 20s and early 30s, trying to chase the ball and go for it. And those are valuable years you end up missing if you run too fast. Enjoy it as it goes. The journey really is fun. Take some chances, believe in yourself, and I think you'll all get there in your own path. So thank you.
I want to talk to you for a second before you leave. I want you to tell them what you're working on now, because I think this is your target audience, and I'd like them to really hear about it, and then maybe you, if you can tell them what it's called so they can look for it and when they can expect to be able to buy it, because I want one.
Sure. Well, the company is called Collar Tech, and we're doing something that's somewhat unique in a couple of ways. It's both a hardware and a software communication solution. So the hardware is a new kind of headset you'll be able to wear, actually woven into garments, attached to a helmet, other components, almost like a Bluetooth headset, you'd think, that allows for full voice control of things such as cameras and other components you might have. Get into that in a bit, but it's the ability to have instant communication with any of your friends. So if you go skiing with 6 people, each of you can scan barcodes on your phones, and now you're all part of the same talk group. Now for the rest of the day, you can all chat with each other, talk with each other. You can have 50 people or others, and all communicate easily, whether you're on snowboards or cycling or wherever you may be. And then, of course, a whole infrastructure for communication in the internet so that everyone can handle that talking. It includes a whole bunch of technology on extreme noise cancellation. So if you're out on the road, you can't hear the road noise from someone who's sitting there. So it allows that environment all hands-free again, so you could be rock climbing, whatever it may be, and communicate.
And that's called Collar Tech. And when can they expect to be able to?
Probably going to be a little while yet, maybe at least 9. I'll probably beta in about 9 months, having people use them, maybe my first couple of hundred folks, and maybe within a year have commercial release.
Well, I know a couple hundred folks that would be happy to be in your test group. So if you need people in the 15 to 25 age group, let me know. We'll put it out on the Leap website.
And we're also actually doing a new control function for GoPro. So if anyone's like absolute expert, wonderful people in GoPro, I'd love to talk to you too, make you some of my beta customers.
All right. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, man.